This is our presentation on Oral and Written Language Scales, 2nd edition by Lauralee, Fant, and Amy Scott. This is an overview. Oral and Written Language Scales, 2nd edition, also known as OWLS 2, is a comprehensive assessment of language. 4 scales are measured: listening comprehension, oral expression, reading comprehension, and written expression. Oral language is tested for ages 3 to 21, and written language is tested for ages 5 to 21.
What does the OWLS measure? It measures listening comprehension, which is the oral language reception, and it measures a child's ability to listen to and comprehend spoken language. For this, the format of this section, the examiner will read a stimulus word aloud, and the examinee points to one of the 4 pictures that best depicts the meaning of the word. For example, there will be 4 pictures on an easel for the child, and the examiner will say, "Show me the car." A correct response from the child would be the child pointing to the car. This test takes approximately 10 to 20 minutes, and it is appropriate for ages 3 years 0 months to 21 years 11 months. It also tests oral expression, and this is oral language expression, and it measures speaking. The format of this section, the examinee gives spoken answers to oral and pictorial prompts. The examiner will show the child 2 pictures. For example, one will be of a picture of a cat and one will be of a dog. And the examiner will point and say, "Here is the cat," and point and say, "Here is a," and a correct response from the child would be dog. This section takes approximately 10 to 30 minutes and is appropriate for ages 3 years 0 months to 21 years 11 months.
Reading comprehension is also tested. This is the written language reception, reading and comprehending written language. This item format, and the examinee reads written prompt and it indicates one of the 4 response options by pointing or speaking. For example, the examinee is asked to read the following statement and indicate from 4 choices what would be said next. After Peter opened his present, Joan said, "You really like your new sweater, don't you?" This test takes approximately 10 to 30 minutes, and it is appropriate for ages 5 years 0 months to 21 years 11 months. Written expression is also tested. Written language expression includes writing. This item format is when the examiner presents an oral, written, or pictorial prompt, and the examinee writes his answer in a response booklet. For a lower level, the examinee will just produce correctly his or her first name. For a more advanced level, an example would be write 4 steps for giving a dog a bath. Make sure to describe it from the beginning to end in a complete paragraph. Do not make a list. This testing takes approximately 15 to 30 minutes, and it is appropriate for ages 5 years and 0 months to 21 years and 11 months.
Scale scores, it provides age-based and grade-based standard scores, test age and grade equivalents, percentile ranks, and descriptive categories.
Composite scores include oral language, which is the listening comprehension plus oral expression, written language, which includes reading comprehension and written expression, receptive language, which includes listening comprehension and reading comprehension, expressive language, which includes oral expression and written expression. Overall language includes listening comprehension, oral expression, reading comprehension, and written expression.
The second edition includes a new comprehensive profile form, and in this, the 4 scales can be compared with one another to provide information on meaningful differences, and this information can be used to guide intervention planning. So each of the 4 scales can be used individually or they can be used together.
Item analysis. So one of the things that is analyzed here is lexical and semantic skills, and this includes vocabulary such as nouns, verbs, modifiers, idioms, prefixes, and suffixes. Another area that is analyzed is syntax. This includes grammatical morphemes, which is function words and inflections, and then also sentence structure, which looks at complexity, accuracy, and type. Another area is superlinguistic. This is non-literal language. This includes double meanings, inferences, verbal reasoning, figurative language, indirect request, and humor. Another area is pragmatic. This includes functional and appropriate use of language. And then text structure is also looked at. This is the knowledge and use of all other categories to create lengthy text passages. Convention is also looked at, and this is letter formation, which is fine motor, spelling, punctuation, and capitalization.
Why should you choose this test? It is used to identify the strengths and weaknesses in a language. You can use it if you want to determine the existence of a language delays and disabilities, and also to help guide eligibility for services and to help guide intervention planning. The advantages of the OWLS includes much information can be gained by using all 4 scales together. They can also individually measure distinct and critical aspects of language, and the test ensures that examinees are exposed only to items appropriate for their age and ability level.
Values of use. This is appropriate in schools, clinics, hospitals, private practices, and intervention programs. Experience and training in administration and interpretation of individual assessments with children is needed. Application of results requires professional training and experience or supervision by an experienced professional. This should not be used in isolation to diagnose or plan treatment for a child.
What if the examinee speaks an alternate dialect? One good thing about the OWLS is that it provides an alternative correct responses for African American English or a similar dialect because of the role of dialect in expressive language. In the test manual, it includes a chart of appropriate responses that could be scored correctly or incorrectly.
How are the scores interpreted? Raw scores converted to standardized scores. This allows results to be compared with those of standardization sample of typically developing individuals. It is also used to interpret scale scores and composite scores. Standard scores are also used. For example, a mean of 100. Also, standard deviation of 15. Age-based standard scores are also used. This is recommended if identifying learning disabilities. Grade-based standard scores are used as well, and this is if you are using this for curriculum planning. Descriptive ranges are also used. This translates the numbers into natural language easily understood by parents and other non-professionals. Exceptional, above average, average, below average, and deficient are some words that can be used to describe the child's abilities.
Interpreting patterns. After scoring, you may notice a few patterns. If all the scores are low, this may suggest a general central disorder influencing all aspects of language. This could possibly be due to a hearing impairment or a low intellectual ability. And this is an influence of other languages in the home should also be studied. If the oral and written scales are different, the most common is if the oral is better than written, and this could be due to a failure of the examinee to have mastered the relation between the oral and written codes. And if they do know phonics, other factors may be the cause. Receptive and expressive scales are different. This could often occur with a problem with the two expressive tasks, oral and written. And they may have a problem in writing, and this will not be observed as early as oral. Children learn to write later than they do to speak. And if you only have one scale that is low, the frequent cause is that written language usually is the last process to emerge and often gets neglected in the classroom. Written skill incorporates the basic knowledge of language required on the other three scales.
Characteristics of the standardization sample. Gender. This is proportions of male and females is similar to the U.S. population. Ethnicity is also one, and this is also similar to the U.S. Ages 3 to 21. Parent education, this is used to indicate socioeconomic status. Less than a high school diploma is represented by 12.9% of the standardization sample. High school graduates are 29.2% of the sample. Individuals that have some college experience are 21.7% of the sample, and individuals who have 4 years or more of college are 36.2% of the sample. Region is also considered. This closely resembles geographic distribution of the United States. However, the western region is slightly underrepresented and the eastern regions is slightly overrepresented. Age is also a characteristic. This is most heavily concentrated at the younger ages because this is a critical time for language development. And then grade is also a characteristic. The sample size for the grade norms was smaller than the sample of the age norms. The age norms include individuals who either have not yet entered school or who have entered post-secondary education.
The technical aspects of this test. The scores can be used to distinguish individuals with expressive language disorders from typically developing individuals. And it also distinguishes typically developing individuals from those with speech and language disorders, as well as those with behavior and developmental disorders.
General impressions of this test. It was fairly easy to learn. It was very informative. It has very informative manuals with a lot of details and various case studies for examples. It is a great test to determine a client's main weaknesses and strengths of language abilities, and it is a good starting point to determine the direction to begin for intervention.